Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Mark Cvetkovski of Top Buxus. So Mark and his business partner run a garden maintenance business, and they came across Top Buxus overseas and ended up bringing it to Australia. I was talking with Craig Ratcliffe a few episodes ago, and he was a big proponent of the product. So I thought it'd be a good idea to talk to Mark and find out exactly how it all works. Mark's got a scientific background prior to going into the horticulture side of things, so he's a good person to talk to about it, and he goes into some good detail about how he treats the roots in the winter so that there's good growth for spring. He also talks about how even though you might not be looking at a sick Buxus plant, if you're applying their product it'll make it look a lot greener, and you do see that in a lot of people who are posting on Instagram that I've seen anyway. That are doing a lot of topiary and hedging work. They're getting some pretty good results from it, and it happens pretty quick. And one of the good business notes I took out of the chat was how Mark and his business partner actually used the product for like 12 months before they started selling it. So it's good to have confidence in the product that you're selling so that you can talk about it with confidence, and that'll improve your sales. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Mark Cvetkovski.
Mark, thank you very much for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. First question I've got for you is how you got in the industry to start off with.
So basically, I've been in and out of the industry since, round about the age of 18, 19. A friend of mine went to Burnley to study horticulture, and basically he's been actively in the industry since then, and pretty much wherever he sort of worked and needed some extra help, I always kind of would jump in and help out. And yeah, basically worked for a few different companies through the years and just kind of fell in love with all things gardening and all things horticulture. Basically, up until a few years ago, my business partner Matthew had started his own business, and his business partner and myself basically just worked as a 3-person team for a fair few years, just sort of going around servicing all of our different clients. And then his business partner decided to bow out, and we sort of sat down and had a chat and thought we could do something, quite substantial with what we had, because our clients really liked what we did, and we thought we could just really build something. So yeah, up until a few years ago, I sort of jumped in and we basically built our garden maintenance business.
Were you studying, or what sort of work were you doing when you weren't working for your mate?
So I've been in and out of all sorts of different things. I actually have a degree in psychology, so I've coming at it from a very strange angle. But for me, it's just the interest in all things kind of scientific. So, through that degree, it kind of gave me a really robust understanding of how to approach things that are science-based. I have I'm quite accomplished at reading peer-reviewed journals and understanding how studies go. There's, quite a lot of biology involved, and, it was almost like I could just dive straight into the nitty-gritty of horticulture because I have that basis in understanding scientific method.
Yeah, I think that's one of the more underrated sides of horticulture, is the scientific side of it, in terms of soil profiles and how that all works. And because if you don't have good soil, you're not going to have good plants. It doesn't matter what you do to it.
And basically, the soil science, the individual plant science, from treating pests and pathogens, or even the identification. Basically there's all sorts of markers that you can find on a plant, and you've kind of got to be inquisitive and match that with research to find your answers and to find your conclusions. And basically that's kind of how we ended up getting involved with Top Buxus because of that side of the business. You know, we were always trying to find better ways to do things, and always trying to, you know, improve the quality of our service and the quality of our plants, and trying to use research to identify the problems and then try to find the solutions. Because basically, as we were discussing earlier, Matt, my business partner, and I had been sort of looking at our plants in formal gardens and looking at the Buxus, and basically saying in our entire time in the industry, we sort of noticed that they'd had a pretty significant decline, and they stopped looking really vivid and really green, and we just didn't really know why that was. And basically we went, you know, down a rabbit hole trying to research and contact, you know, as many different professional Buxus groups like the American Boxwood Society, and try to put together some sort of a system for feeding and improving the quality of the plants. And we were pretty surprised at how little information there was out there, and actually how little information people knew. Most of the time they'd say put down dolomite lime or sea salt, but no understanding of why or what it is that it's doing for the plant itself. And basically I tried creating all of these different combinations of fertilizers, you know, things that had heavy phosphorus that you'd put down late autumn, you know, because the theory behind that, which turns out to be true, but only if done in conjunction with other things, is that you develop the root systems through winter, and what happens under the ground during the off season will happen above the ground come spring. So you lay the foundation for your plant to be dense by giving it that, you know, root boost during its off season. So
You said that works only with in conjunction with other things. So what sort of other things does that need to work with? Because it sounds like a pretty good way to do it. And does that work with plants other than Buxus?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, unless they're natives, which don't tend to like a lot of phosphorus. But yeah, sorry. But basically, I put together all these different ways, but nothing really worked. I put in a couple of years of doing all these different processes, and I'd come into spring, you know, all waiting for, you know, the exciting results, and there'd just be nothing. And it wasn't until I went, you know, into the darkest corners of the internet and found Top Buxus, and I contacted the guys and, you know, had a chat, and, you know, they even called me, and we were on the phone for hours, you know, even with the time difference. And they just went through all the ins and outs of all the different things that were happening with the plants. And, you know, one of them was nutritional, and one of them was a common fungal infection that they get. And ultimately, I had no idea that that was even a thing to consider. You know, there's all these elements to Buxus that people think are quite easy and straightforward, but they're susceptible to lots of different pests, lots of different pathogens, and all of it comes down to nutrition and health. And if you're not feeding it the right things, then it's not going to do what you want.
So how long ago was that you first contacted them?
So that would probably be about 3 years ago now. So just before the pandemic, we got a really solid year of trialing the product on our gardens. And basically the difference was chalk and cheese. You know, the way they've created the products is that they work quickly. So we saw a turnaround almost instantaneously. And we were just absolutely dumbfounded that something hadn't existed in this space before and wasn't well known about, and that this actually did exist and do exactly what it said that it did. You know, we thought for a long time, most of our Buxus were not getting enough water, you know, or they were getting sun scorched and sun damaged. But basically, it turned out that we were just experiencing Buxus blight. It was a fungal infection. You know, the leaves bronze and dry off, and, it defoliates and loses its leaves, like it's sort of suffering from lack of water. But it just, basically turns out that this fungal infection is quite prolific, and it will just sort of stop the growth and basically make the plant decline. We even went to the lengths of sending samples to the Agricultural Victoria laboratory to test them to find out what they actually had. And at the result was a particular type, which is not, there's a few different varieties. So this one's Voluatella buxi, which is not as aggressive as the Cylindrocladium buxicola, which is the one you can see in New South Wales and that has just devastated Europe, the United States, New Zealand, all these countries all have this problem. And basically it just seems to be that's the main reason that, these plants just aren't performing.
So how does the Top Buxus, so how many products, are there 2 products that with Top Buxus?
Yeah, so there's 2. So one is like an effervescent tablet, which is sprayed on the leaves, which is it's a treatment for blight, but it's got nutrients in it as well. That one's called the Top Buxus Health Mix. And that's the one that we use the most, just because it's a really easy way of, feeding your plants. Buxus plants are always planted in close succession, and they're categorized as gross feeders. So there's high nutrient competition in the roots, and they just need to consume a lot of nutrients, constantly, especially if they're trimmed regularly. And by foliar feeding and spraying the nutrients directly to the leaves, each plant is getting the same amount of nutrition. And the other one is the Grow, which is basically just all of the micronutrients that a Buxus plant needs. So it's got, your nitrogen, your phosphorus, and your potassium. So it's pretty normalish NPK, but what it has is calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. And the calcium, magnesium are hugely important for the color. You've just got to have tons and tons of calcium and magnesium in it. And basically both of the products, they work together with the Dutch government, laboratory testing it against competitors as well, like Bayer. And they also tested the best looking plants that they could find to find out what exactly was in them, and then just reverse engineered their products from there. So they work, they just have everything that you need to have in them. It's a one-stop shop for, your nutritional needs, basically.
So does the health mix, does that kind of knock about the blight, or is that is it just mainly increasing the health of it so that it can't?
So it's both. It's both, right? So basically it's got so it doesn't use noxious fungicides. So basically it's a trio of elements that basically burn the spores and stop them spreading, but it also boosts it with magnesium, potassium, and nitrogen. So the nitrogen is to make sure that once it's burned off the spores, you'll get a quick turnaround in new growth. And then the potassium is basically to give you the thicker cell walls and to really develop the structure of the plant so that the new growth's not just coming out thin and insipid. And then the magnesium is just for color. So you're really just getting it right to the plant, exactly where it needs it. And, basically just getting that plant to recover as quickly as you can.
All right. So how long were you using the product before you started? So you're a reseller, are you?
So we are Top Buxus Australia. So we are the reseller for all of Australia.
Yep.
And basically we were using the product for about a year continuously before we decided to have a conversation with them about distributing it, because we just were so blown away with how amazing it was, and basically just figured this has to come to Australia.
And how long did it take before you start selling it in other states? Because you're in Melbourne. So have you got people like who's like because Craig Sutcliffe from Southern Cross Lawns and Gardens put me on to you because he distributes it in New South Wales, I believe.
Yep. So yeah, basically we were contacted pretty quickly by a fair few people. Craig Sullivan from Hedgehog's Gardens in South Australia. He's a topiary, I want to say genius, but he sort of does cloud pruning and some amazing sort of kind of Japanese-esque topiary gardens. And he'd heard of the product before too. And basically he sort of jumped on board. There's a guy in WA, Glenn Spark, who he has a farm and he grows his own Buxus, and he's been sort of flirting with the with Top Buxus through Instagram for the past 3 or 4 years. And then Travis Savage from the Lawn Lab in Queensland, and all these guys have been pretty instrumental to us being able to get, you know, the message out and to really, you know, demonstrate to the public, you know, what the product can actually do. Craig Ratcliffe from Southern Cross, he was pretty key early on in helping me sort of negotiate the social media side of things. I basically took everything that he said to a T and applied it to everything that I did. And we've, you know, basically had amazing results from that as well. He introduced us to Merribee Gardens too. So they have started using our product, and they've probably been using it for about a year, and they have nothing but, you know, kind things to say. Yeah, so we've been able to get into some pretty interesting areas. I also managed to get in contact with Graham Ross as well and had a few conversations with him. And I actually arranged for Top Buxus's creator, Adri Von Dunn, to go on his radio program. Graham has been advocating for Buxus blight as a problem in Australia since the 1970s. And yeah, and it's just interesting to me that because he through the 90s, I think he was saying, saw the devastation of the blight on all the formal gardens throughout Europe, and was, you know, basically coming back here, warning everyone of what was coming, and, you know, basically saying that this is something that's happening, you know, just acknowledge it, we'll deal with it and then move on. But yeah, he was very, very fascinated with the product, and he was, yeah, quite supportive, and yeah, had a lot of great advice and a lot of great information to share as well.
I reckon one of the good things about it in terms of, you know, marketing it is how quickly, like you said, it works really quickly, because I think that's what people want, especially with plants that grow. So yeah, that's a benefit. People could try it, and then they see that it works, and then they can talk about it as well. Have you noticed a big change in the amount you're selling in 12 months? Huge,
absolutely dramatic, you know, and all of that is thanks to just people in the social media community, especially Craig Ratcliffe and Craig Sullivan, for just getting in there and just spreading the message. Because, you know, look, the products are pretty niche. They don't do anything above what they say they do. You know, there are benefits to using them. So the health mix, because of some of the elements in it, after sort of hedging and pruning, if you apply it, you'll get some protection against disease resistance, some resistance against disease. And by feeding them as well, you'll just improve the health of the plant so that you get thicker cell walls, which make them less susceptible to disease and pests. And, you know, because they're quick acting too, if you get pest damage, you can get a quicker recovery. But, you know, they pretty specific in what they do, right?
Do they work on other plants?
You can definitely get some benefits in other plants, but they are sort of pretty well specifically designed just for Buxus. Their delivery system is engineered to be, you know, quickly absorbed by the plants. So the way the growth formula, for instance, is engineered. It's basically the type of construct of the fertilizer is designed in a way that, you know, gets targeted to Buxus roots. So even if you've got some pretty, you know, terrible soil, you'll still get some pretty good response from it, because that's what it's designed to do. But yeah, look, what I tell anyone, you know, if you're going to use any fertilizer on any plants, just look at what that plant needs and, you know, basically see what elements are in our products, and then you can sort of work backwards from there. You know, things like gardenias that require high nitrogen, you know, tend to do pretty well with it. I mean, the best way I can put it is it won't harm any other plants.
Yeah. So what sort of advertising are you doing? Is it like you're doing a bit of influencer marketing? Is that working well?
Yeah, a little bit of influencer marketing, lots of social media posting. We're doing some radio advertising in New South Wales. We're sort of trying to, you know, pitch more and more towards, you know, bigger and bigger projects. You know, we're sort of hoping at some juncture we'll try to get ourselves onto television as well. But, you know, that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, you know, look, the products, they just sort of speak for themselves at the end of the day. And I just encourage anyone to try them. You know, if you've got certain problems with your Buxus, like pests, you know, you want to talk to your local garden centre to find out what to use. But if you want to just improve the overall health of any variety of Buxus plant, these are the ones to use. That's it.
So do you do any selling in garden centres, or is it all direct from one of you guys?
Look, we're definitely located in a few garden centres. We've got, you know, we're trying to get into as many different spaces as we can. The majority of all of our sales have been direct to customer just because of the coronavirus. It's been quite a challenging time to try and, you know, start a new business. And I'll definitely tell you that there's been some very interesting learning curves. But yeah, look, we kind of just want to get the product to the customers as easily as we can and in as many ways as humanly possible, because at the end of the day, all we want is to see people just get better Buxus plants and not be settling for the status quo. That's it.
Yeah, well, a lot of the jobs that we do in Victoria are all specifying the Buxus japonica, because that's less susceptible to the blight, as far as I'm aware. So does this work on both, or not? Like, sorry, not on both, on all different types of Buxus?
Yep. So and even you know, you sort of said, does it work on other plants as well? Anything that's also like a comparable, like euonymus, and anything that sort of has a similar style of growth habit. But yeah, all Buxus will benefit from it. And one of the things that you'll notice in your other varieties of Buxus plants is, especially say your Japanese or Dutch box, you'll notice that you'll get a color profile from it that you hadn't ever seen before. It'll go a really deep green. Most people, when they sort of talk to me about their other varieties of Buxus, they go, yeah, the color's a bit yellow, you know, like that's what they're supposed to be. But for the most part, that's just because they're undernourished and they don't have enough, basically, nitrogen, calcium and magnesium to really change that color. But yeah, all the ones, I mean, if you have a look at some of Craig Sullivan's Instagram, you'll see some of his Japanese box. It is thick, it's tight, and it's vivid green. You know, it is just absolutely sensational to look at.
So are you still doing the maintenance business as well?
Yeah, 100%. So we still service our gardens too. We use these products in our, you know, day to day. All of our high-end gardens will always get you know, treatments from these products, because we just, you know, we stand by what we sell. So and we figure the best way to demonstrate it is to use it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's exactly right. So then you actually have confidence when you're selling it and telling people this works, and not just saying it because someone who you sold to told you it works, but you're actually using it and you've got the confidence in it.
Yeah, and look, we've seen all sorts of different things, you know. So there's a with Buxus plants, they also don't like to have wet roots, and they can also get root rot, and you know that can look similar to Buxus blight. You know, you've just kind of got to work out what's going on with your plant. Our product doesn't treat root problems. That's a whole nother ball game. But at the end of the day, you know, we've had a lot of experience with a lot of different contexts, so that when customers do come to us and ask us hairy questions, we pretty well have a solution because we've seen it. There's not a lot that has been put in front of me that I haven't been able to find a resolution for. And, you know, I'd say 80% of the time it's use top Buxus because mostly it comes down to blight or nutrition. But, you know, for that, you know, 10 or 20% of other things, it's other products. You know, like box silage is very common. People don't know that, but what tends to happen when, you know, your plants, your Buxus plants are underwatered and they're, you know, undernourished, they just become more susceptible to all sorts of pest and disease. So, you know, you can treat it directly by using, you know, systemic insecticides, or you can just improve the health of your plant and you're most likely going to beat the problem.
So are there any other issues that you're seing when you're doing your garden maintenance that you're looking to overcome, like you have with the Buxus, top Buxus?
Oh God. Well, at the moment it's more trying to transition to electronic power tools. That's a hurdle that we really want to cross. We're sort of looking at trying to be a little bit more, you know, conscientious with our work and, you know, head into that terrain. As far as sort of plant health goes, I've been too consumed with Buxus over the last couple of years. That's all I ever think about now.
That's fair enough. Yeah, it's only been a short time. So how's it go? So you're talking about converting to battery powered tools?
Well, yeah, look, we've been flirting with the idea for quite some time, but, you know, we just haven't really made the leap, you know, for the logistics side of trying to run a business with, you know, just making sure that the tools are all powered up. Long conversations with Craig Ratcliffe they've taken me sort of a fair few steps closer. But, you know, hearing his tales of 8 battery packs for one day sort of scares me off from, you know, diving in too deep. But that's something that we're very, very keen to get on in the near future because it is the future.
Yeah. And the products are getting a lot better by the day as well. Yeah, like previously, like 5 years ago, if you had to look at a battery powered chainsaw, you wouldn't even look at it twice. But yeah, things are improving, and robotic lawnmowers as well that go back and charge themselves. So yeah, it definitely is heading that direction. You're not worried about robot lawnmowers taking over your business, are you?
No, I hope they do take over. It just means it's one less thing for me to do. Well, you know, look, lawns need mowing regularly to look great. They still need feeding. They still need, you know, pest and pathogen treatment. They still need, you know, a person to come in and look at it and assess why it's not working. So there's always going to be people involved. A robot can't tell you that you've got African lawn beetles. So I think I'm safe for the moment.
Yeah. So what's coming up next for Top Buxus? Like, what are your goals for in 12 months' time?
Well, look, we want to get more active in the market. We want to try and do a lot more educational material for people. Basically, we're trying to bring as much knowledge as we can to the individual, so that if you come to our website, you'll walk away, basically knowing everything that you need to know. We're trying to get the parent company to put together a PDF manual with, do's and don'ts on Buxus care, from planting to soil to watering, and then also a comprehensive guide of pest and pathogen identification, because at the end of the day, as I said, our products work, but they work for, what they do, which is basically Buxus health. But there's a lot of other things that can sort of happen in a garden, and we just want people to be able to, confidently walk into their garden, look at their plants and go, I know what's going on.
That makes perfect sense. All right. I'll keep it short because there's a bit to take on there. There's a bit of information for people to digest, but
Sorry.
I really appreciate you coming on, Mark. Thank you so much for that. It's very informative.
No, thank you so much for having me. Look, it's been a real interesting ride, and I love talking about this stuff. And basically, I just want people to have great gardens and to enjoy them. That's it.
That sounds good. Thanks, Mark.